Hey everyone, it's Sam from Leaders RPM up here in our snowmobile showroom. Let me show you around this 2025 Polaris Indy XCR 850 that we've got here in stock. Let me get up to the front of this sled and show you just what makes this an XCR. All right, so for skis on this sled, let's start right at the front. This sled's going to have Polaris Pro Steer ski, a ski that has been used on pretty much all their trail sleds, has been for over 10 years. Great ski design, hence why they're still using it. This sled is an XCR. It's going to come with an 8-inch carbide on it right from the factory. Most of their other trail segment sleds will just have a 4-inch, so that is a fun fact about the XCR. You will have a bigger carbide on there. Getting into suspension, another thing unique about this sled that makes it an XCR. This sled is equipped with the Walker Evans Velocity, a 2-inch shock body. It's going to have high and low speed compression adjustment, which is going to be the most adjustment that they offer on any of these Walker Evans shocks that you see on these sleds in the trail lineup. It's going to give you more room to tune up your compression for big bumps, and depending on the trails that you're riding, it gives you the most adjustment. Also, you're going to have a stiffer calibration on the suspension as far as how the shock's valved, and the coilover spring that's here on the shock body. The XCRs are going to have a 100-pound compression rate on the front ski shocks for that coil spring, opposed to a lot of the other trail sleds that are just 80-pound. So that stiffer front coil spring is going to help keep the nose of that sled up, especially when you're riding really aggressive, and just give you a little bit more in that shock, in that spring, as far as how it's going to react under big suspension events when you're hitting big whoops or jumping into the ditch, if you're ditch banging. So that's a big thing to know about an XCR, that suspension. That is part of what makes it an XCR. As they do on most of the other snow check model sleds, such as an XCR, Switchback Assault, VR1, you are going to have the Nightblade headlights on here, so you're going to have great throw out of a set of LED headlights here. I'm going to have good throw and performance in their stock form. Let's check out some things in the cockpit of the sled and keep going on talking about what makes this XCR an XCR. All right, here into the cockpit of the sled, let's look at a couple things that make this an XCR and just a couple things that will be similar on other Matrix sleds. So from an ergonomic standpoint, right, it's a Matrix sled. Sitting here, as far as your seat height, the room that you have around the fuel tank is going to be very similar to what you have on other sleds like the VR1s or the XC models. Some differences you will see is you are going to have an upgraded Pro Taper handlebar on an XCR. So you're going to have a stronger handlebar being the Pro Taper with a little bit different bend in it, and you're also going to have a bigger J-hook on the end of the handlebar, just giving you more to leverage off and push off if you're hanging off the sled from side to side while you're working through the turns. Something specific to the XCRs is going to be a tether, so it does come with a tether right here on the sled, where a majority of the Polaris sleds, unless you're looking at the mountain sleds, they don't include those. So majority of the trail sleds won't have that tether already included. That is a magnetic tether. As far as the brakes on the sled, that is a difference too. So an XCR is going to have the Hayes race brake disc caliper on it, as well as their race compound pads. So that's going to be the same braking system as far as that disc and pads are concerned, right off of the cross-country race sled that Polaris offers. And that's really the embodiment of an XCR. I mean, that cross-country racer XCR. This sled gets the consumer as close as they can to something that's right out of the box. Is modeled a lot after that race cross-country platform that Polaris has won so many Iron Dogs and additional competitions like that with. All right, so at the back of the sled, let's check out what's going on in the rear skid, the rear suspension of this XCR. This sled's going to have the Pro CC skid, so you're going to have that same geometry that you're finding in other Matrix platform sleds, but there are a number of goodies in here that are XCR specific. For starters, the shocks and springs, what you got back here. So just like on the front, skis, you're going to have both track shocks are going to be the Walker Evans 2-inch body Velocity, and those are going to have high and low speed compression adjustment, giving you the most adjustment of just about any shock out there on the Polaris trail segment of sleds. The springs, so this torsion spring is going to be stiffer on the XCR. It will come standard with the HD torsion spring, where VR1s and Indy XCs, those other trail sleds, will come with just the standard. So you are going to have that heavy-duty torsion spring, giving you more resistance to anti-bottoming and just a stiffer initial ride as far as the way that the skid's acting. You're also going to have your XCR front torque arm, just giving you, again, more rigidity and stability into that skid. The XCRs are also going to come with 2 limiter straps opposed to just 1 that you'll find on VR1s and Indy XCs. So that's another thing to note about an XCR. Going to durability, stiffness in the rear. Your rails here, you'll see on Indy XCs and VR1s, they've got more windows cut in the rails, a little bit lighter weight, but in the XCR, it's all about strength. So those XCRs going to have different rail on here, going to have your rail stiffener. Looking towards the back, your transfer blocks back here, you are going to have machined aluminum transfer blocks here on an XCR, opposed to the plastic and rubber ones that you'll find on VR1s and Indy XCs. So again, just beefed up, stronger. You're also going to have 4 idler wheels here on the back axle, where XCs and Indy VR1s just have 3. So those 4 wheels are going to help with that track alignment. Also going to help just, again, with strength. So you're going to have 4 wheels back there if you're making any real violent landings kind of on the tail of the sled. Those 4 wheels are going to help disperse that shock across the rear into that rear axle. That about wraps it up for me here at the rear end of this sled. From a track standpoint, there's 3 different options they gave us for XCRs. You had a 1 1/4 inch ice ripper track, the 1.35 Cobra track, which this specific sled is equipped with, or you had a 1.6 Cobra track. That 1.6 Cobra track, fun fact, if you do have that larger track, that's what was optioned, that taller lug. The sled is geared differently in the chain case, so just something to note, opposed to a 1 1/4 or a 1.35 Cobra. The gearing is different for that 1.6 Cobra option. Well, I think that wraps it up for me. Again, we were looking at this 2025 Indy XCR 850 that we've got upstairs here in stock in our snowmobile showroom. If you have any questions on this sled or anything else that we have in stock, please get a hold of me, Sam, or one of the guys here. Phone number is 269-372-1072. Let us know, and have a great winter.